You may introduce your question if you wish.
Thanks, Cathaoirleach. Minister, I obviously warmly welcome the appointment of Mr Kevin Duffy as Chair of the Public Service Pay Commission, and you've published, I think, the terms of reference of the Commission on your website. And I'd just like you perhaps to expand on that. And can you tell us what kind of resources will you make available to the Commission in terms of the kind of economic, industrial expertise that will certainly need? Do you envisage it being something like IFAC, that type of organisation, in the role that it would have in advising your department?
Thank you.
Thanks,
Minister.
Thank you, Deputy. The establishment of the Public Service Pay Commission to examine pay levels across the public service is a commitment in the Confidence and Supply Agreement and in the Programme for Partnership Government. In July, the Government agreed in principle to the establishment of that body. In line with that decision and with commitments that we have, my department conducted and had to conduct a public consultation about the role and methodology of the Commission. And the aftermath of that, I brought proposals to government. They were agreed yesterday. Thank you for acknowledging the role of Mr Kevin Duffy in chairing this body. Mr Duffy, as a former chairman of the Labour Court, I believe will bring a very strong understanding of these matters to his work in the Public Pay Commission, and he's acknowledged as being an impartial figure with great expertise in this area. In terms of additional resources, to answer the question of the Deputy, my plan is to appoint a further 6 members of the Commission within the coming days. The role of this Commission will be advisory in nature, Deputy, and the reason for that is I do not believe that it is appropriate that we outsource to another body negotiations that will happen in relation to future pay and conditions of public servants. In terms of the timing of the organisation and how it will work, Deputy, it's my expectation that they'll provide an initial report to the Government by Q2 of next year. And the broad terms of reference of the committee, as you have seen, are to provide inputs into Government in relation to how we can deliver the affordable unwinding of the FEMPI legislation. And the terms of reference lay out a number of areas for them to engage in relation to the evolution of pay trends, the comparison of these pay trends at home and abroad, and the quality and health of our national finances.
Thanks,
Cathaoirleach. Well, Minister, my colleague here referred to the justified case that's been made by my own trade union, ASTI, and also by An Garda Síochána, by the nurses, by doctors, a growing list, if you like, of public service workers who feel that the government has been very remiss in, not just unwinding, but getting rid of FEMPI and getting rid of that whole approach. Now, you're going to be under, obviously, a significant time pressure when you come, for example, to the Budget Committee, which you appeared before a few weeks ago. You're going to have arrangements in place for the post-Lansdowne Road era and the kind of spending, additional or whatever, to 300 million that you spent this year. So there is a kind of, a time factor in this regard. And I just wanted to ask you, what do you intend to do in relation to pensions as well? There has been some adverse comment about some of the lump sums and so on in the highly paid top echelons of the public service, and indeed also in relation to the fact that people in this House would have restoration, and that the workers I refer to and all the other workers would not have the same restoration.
Minister, your response.
Thank you, Deputy. In relation to the analysis that you offered there in relation to the challenges that we face in our public services, and I acknowledge we are dealing with some serious issues there, the context that I would offer in relation to it is we have to acknowledge that we are in a situation where over 20 unions are members of and have signed on to the Lansdowne Road Agreement, and well over 200,000 civil and public servants are members of the Lansdowne Road Agreement due to that happening. So while I understand and respect the role of the Deputy in raising those who are outside the Lansdowne Road Agreement, in my efforts to deal with that matter, I also have to respect the large number of people who are in it. In relation to the question that you asked me on pensions, Deputy, in the initial guidance that I have provided to the Public Pay Commission, and I look forward to meeting them soon, I have referenced the issue of pensions and ask that that be taken account of in any input they provide to the government.
Thank you, Minister.
Thanks, Kerrick, again. Well, you're saying you will appoint those 6 members, and I hope again it will be representatives from the trade union movement and from obviously industry, from this public service itself, to provide the kind of background that we need. Just wanted to ask you then, in terms of how do you see the cost and how do you see the ongoing work of the body? I mentioned there the role of IFAC, for example. You're not putting on a statutory basis. But would it go on? And obviously it's outside the industrial relations machinery. And have you given an absolute, number one, if you like, aim to the organisation that getting rid of FEMPI, restoring public service pay, given that it was a public service and our citizens, our low-paid workers generally, who bore the brunt of the banking crash. And I know CPSU trade union has cautiously welcomed the establishment of the Commission, but they have mentioned the fact that we need to be cognizant of Irish costs of living. The fact that cost of living here is one of the highest in the European Union, and that needs to be taken account of for our low-paid public servants.
So your final reply.
Thank you, Deputy. In relation to your observation there for the need for a representative body, a representative panel of the Pay Commission, what I don't want to do is put together a group of people whose job it is to represent any individual sector. Because I believe, Deputy, were I to do that, I'd undermine the whole fabric of the organisation in the first place. But what I am committed to doing, Deputy, is putting together a panel to assist Mr Duffy in his work that will be diverse and will be broad-based. And in the appointment of Mr Duffy to this work and to this body, I hope it signals the intent that I have to put in place people who have a broad-based appreciation of the challenges that you are referring to. In relation to your question about it being in an administrative footing, it is my intention that it's non-statutory. One of the reasons for that, Deputy, is cognizant of the timings that you outlined earlier on. I want to have this body in place as soon as the consultation process is complete. And in terms of getting rid of FEMPI, it is there to provide input in relation to the unwinding of FEMPI, but that is an unwinding that has to take place in a way that is affordable for everyone, Deputy.
Thank you very much, Minister.